Suzy Wrong. Joy Drive with Dee and Warren's film, TV and theatre reviewer.
Suzy Wrong, Dee Mason. You've sent us on a bum steer, I fear, my friend.
Before we start, happy Mardi Gras, bitches.
Happy Mardi Gras.
I've got to say, there's not the Mardi Gras vibe here in Melbourne that we normally get, with everybody jumping in their cars and heading up the highway to see you all. You got plans, Suzy?
No, I've actually been very disconnected with the whole Mardi Gras thing for quite a few years now, unfortunately.
How's the vibe in Sydney?
Well, it's always, it feels like there is no vibe, but that might just be me, because I'm a bit disconnected with everything.
Now, we're going to be talking about the documentary There's No I in Threesome. And, Suzy, before you tell us about it, I'm changing the name to There's One Big I in Threesome. Tell us about it.
There Is No I in Threesome documents the relationship between Zoe and Ollie, a girl-boy couple in New Zealand. As they count down the months to their wedding, they decide to open up their relationship, thinking it would be their last opportunity for sexual freedom and experimentation before they make their sacred vows of fidelity when the big day finally arrives. To make things even more complicated, the couple spends a lot of time apart, living in different cities due to respective work commitments. This long-distance, open relationship proves to be as hard as one would imagine, and predictably things begin to go awry. Now, there are some very big twists towards the end of the film that we will try not to spoil for you, so let's focus on some of its themes. I found it fascinating observing the young couple embrace their sexual identities. They identify themselves as bisexual, and we see them running off playing with both men and women, which remains a fairly unusual thing in our films, in our storytelling. Warren, do you have bi or pansexual friends?
Yes, I do, actually. Yes, lots of them. Suzy, can I just start? I just want to, and I hope Dee doesn't mind if I quote some of the conversation that Dee and I had texting each other last night while watching this. So, firstly, Dee initiates the conversation. Wait till you see this shot doco.
Shot.
I reply, just started watching, already bored. Oh, mate, this is Dee. You will hate it. Lauren is screaming at me because it's so bad. I reply, they're shitting me to death. Like, it goes on and on and on. And then Fuzzy, gets me some pins to stick in my eyes. But that was just the first part of it.
It does start in a way, because can I just start by saying there's very little that's come out of New Zealand in terms of film and culture that I haven't loved. I find the New Zealand sensibility something exquisite. I think that they make great music and film, and that's why when I started watching this I thought, and then I was thinking to myself, well, he's half German, half Indian, that might complicate it, but she seems to be Kiwi. Why isn't it better? I mean, obviously we can't talk about the plot twist that happens at the end, but I can just say it does not save him from my wrath.
Well, why are you both so annoyed?
You know what? I think it wasn't fair to polyamorous relationships. I didn't think it gave it a fair
It also
airing.
isn't real polyamory, is it? I don't think, and I don't, and I know that I'm sailing close to the wind, but I feel that this felt to me like a long-distance relationship where they had an agreement that everybody could see other people. Now, Suzy, you'll recall at the start of the doco, they are doing their cuddling in the tent thing, going through the rules of their new relationship, and they agree that we only date samesies, so they can have sex with other people so long as they are their own gender. So he can sleep with men and she can sleep with women. That obviously just doesn't happen, and they just go off and have other heterosexual relationships apart from each other. And then when they come together, they'll have three ways, but it's not a polyamorous relationship, I don't think.
No, I don't think they ever talked about it in terms of polyamory, and that it was a lot of the focus was on the impending marriage, which was, it was so I think heteronormativity was very central in the film, and there was always that drive towards heteronormativity, and all these sort of marginal bits of queerness all felt like they were in relation to and in to what was going to be ultimately a husband and wife monogamous relationship. Yeah,
and I think also they said I don't think they fully respected and worked through what it would be like in opening up their relationship before they did it. It's almost like they paid lip service to it. They if you take jealousy for example, I don't want to spoil it, but they just said we'll deal with it when it happens. And then of course when it does come on, you can see one of the characters wanting to divert the conversation and talk about something else. I think it was chickens or something, and clearly that was his fear response had kicked in, and he hadn't been prepared to deal with the emotions of jealousy. And what do you do with it when they do kick in? And he wanted to run away completely from it. So I felt like it was a bit more of a show thing. It was all about filming the documentary rather than a genuine opening up of a relationship and dealing with the issues. They
did say at the start that it was a bit of a selfie documentary.
Yeah.
They did recognize that. And, I think you're right that they were very naive. I think for the three of us who are, probably twice their age, we can see them making all the mistakes very early on. But I do think that they were quite brave. And circling back to your earlier conversation today about regrets, I think the people who have no regrets, all I have to say is you haven't lived, you haven't been brave enough. And these people, I think they have sort of thrown caution to the wind a little bit, and I sort of enjoyed that they didn't know the quagmire that was waiting them, that was awaiting when they decided to take on this crazy experiment.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they say, well, our love is so secure, and I think we've all felt that before. Our love is so secure that jealousy or envy, that won't enter into this bubble that we've created for ourselves. And then as soon as distance comes into play and the fact that everybody's is entitled to sleep with somebody else, then of course they're so young and all that's happening. I mean, none of it surprised me. What did surprise me was my visceral reaction to mainly him, and particularly now that I've seen it to the end, mainly his sort of voyeuristic, but his obsession with himself. It just was.
And she was too. I found her quite insensitive, needy, and narcissistic. To be honest, you know what I mean. And I found, and I found him. He was never. And facing or voicing his true feelings, and you could see that in his facial expressions. And I feel like for me that would be something that would be essential if you're going to open up your relationship, to be able to voice how you're feeling with your partner. And you could see that it was more about, okay, I'm on camera, so I can't necessarily show my true feelings. And
there is a lot of vanity in it, and but it's true also that in love, in relationships, there's a lot of this sort of negotiating. Where do you put your vanity? How do you negotiate that?
Not on binge.
Exactly.
I've always found that really hard to understand where yourself comes in and where does compromise end, which is why I've been single for over 10 years.
I find that so hard to believe. There is, we are speaking to Suzy Wrong about the film, which is currently on it's currently on Binge in Australia. It's called There's No I in Threesome, and it follows a Kiwi couple as they sort of explore their sexual identity through multiple relationships and bisexuality. The point I'd like to make here is that I imagine if you're a bisexual identifying person, there's so very little that is aimed directly at you in terms of, you get bisexual characters, but this is a film about bisexual and polyamory. I would, and even as a homosexual person, I would love to learn more about this without having to ask dumb questions. I'd love to learn more about that sexuality, and this doesn't teach me. It just gives me bad examples of how not to explore that.
I felt like it unnecessarily put open relationships, or polyamory, however we want to describe them, in a negative light through things like poor planning, lack of communication, a desire to please oneself first without due care towards the other parties in the relationship, and no one was being honest with their feelings. And I just thought, you know what, I just hope that people out there in relationships don't look at this with a view to, maybe we can see what it's like, because I don't think it's reality.
I do think they learned those lessons, but towards the end, like at the end of the film, I think they do come to some realization of those things that you've just articulated, which is growing up, which is maturing, which is learning what relationships about. I do feel that there probably needed to be a bit more focused on bisexual and pansexual people, and that their relationship with marriage and monogamy and heteronormativity. I keep going back to the term. Why do they still feel the need to be, like their parents? I found that really curious, and I was hoping to get some answers from that. And I think ultimately it's just the benefit. I guess it's privilege. Once you become like a married, responsible person in society, suddenly you feel like you've kind of crossed over somewhere and you've made it somehow. And people who might be queer in some way still feel that to be a very powerful powerful sort of thing to aspire towards. Like we know, like in recent years, gay and lesbian people who become like straight people because they get married and they have their pets and they might adopt kids, they might make their own kids, and they almost like they're trying to look like straight people. That's obviously my interpretation because I'm not one of those people. Their experience in it would be different. But when I'm observing those things, I found them so weird.
Yeah. It's also, I found them disrespectful to their others, like the people outside of their core relationship.
And the people they pulled into the relationships as well.
I don't know. I think it's a really interesting area of gender and sexuality to explore, and I think that this misses the mark. I think perhaps the biggest mistake was that the main subject, Lux, shouldn't have been the filmmaker. I think it's fine to follow a relationship like this and see, but it's impossible for him to be impartial in the making of this.
You know what I did love, and I won't spoil it, but if you do go and watch it, I think the diving scenes sum it up perfectly.
Yep.
And that's revealed, about halfway through or 3/4 of the way through.
It tops and tails the film beautifully.
Suzy, what's our homework for next week?
Next week is an Australian film called My First Summer. I think it's just appeared on Stan. It's about two teenage girls experiencing their first spark of affection for one another.
Cute.
Fantastic.
We still love you.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I watched it so that we could have this discussion.
Look, I picked this one knowing that it wasn't a great film, but I knew there was a lot to talk about.
And it's really important to also talk about other sexualities, and it's got us thinking at least.
Exactly.
I wouldn't say to people, don't see it. Just don't see it with my girlfriend because she'll kill you.
It's called There's No I in Threesome. It is on Binge at the moment. You can go and watch it and find out what we're talking about. Suzy Wrong, we'll catch you next Tuesday.
See you guys next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
See you, Suzy. Enjoy Mardi Gras.